Daughter today. This is Jenna.
Hi.
I had told you before that I wanted to come on and talk about the children of the twin flame journey, not only for the journey and how it is for them, but also for children of divorce, because there's obviously there's so many divine masculines who don't want to leave their marriage because of children, and there's also a lot of divine feminines who are still living with their karmic partners because of children. And so I thought that my daughter, who's now 21, can give you a perspective in hindsight and how everything was for her and how she feels about it at this time. First, I'm just going to give you a quick summary of my journey for those of you who don't know it. I haven't spoke about it for a while. First, I'm just going to give you the energies of the day really quickly. Today is actually the 22nd of December, 2017. The 22nd in the Divine Triangle numerology book is the Fool. So it's all about taking a leap of faith and opening your heart and freeing yourself. The day adds up to 44, which in the tarot deck is the Four of Cups, and the Four of Cups is about what I've come to learn about that card is it's more about the average love, that we accept less than we're worthy of. It can be a card of boredom, but 44 is also about serving the world. It's really a social worker type number, and it's also the number of Atlas, the weight of the world upon your shoulder. So it's really about freeing yourself to know what you're worth, that you're worthy of great love, and don't settle for less. Okay? So my journey, I've been awakening in my psychic abilities since about 2012. I grew up one of 5 children. I'm the middle child. My mother always called me the unicorn. I was always intuitive and empathic, but I didn't know. I mean, I knew I was more intuitive than other people, but I didn't trust my instincts and things that I might have thought or seen. I didn't always trust those things because of my own insecurities. And I felt nauseous all the time. I didn't realize that how much of a transmuter I was, because I felt nausea most of my life. And so my energy was always very low, and I felt tired all the time. So people always thought I was complaining when I was just stating my state of being, really. So as far as the wounds that we're healing, mine started off with my mother trying to kill herself when I was 2 years old. She was pregnant with my sister. And I wasn't aware of that until I was almost 30 years old. So how can you heal yourself when you don't know what you've been through? And of course, a 2-year-old is totally dependent on their mother. I wasn't verbalizing well, at least. And you're still intuitively so connected to your mother that whatever she's going through, I'm sure that I was feeling as well. So it's definitely an abandonment, if not a rejection. Growing up, she was always emotionally abusive. I feel like every time she saw me, that it reminded her of what she had done, and she never talked about it. No one knew about it, so it was a big secret. But she took all that aggression out on me. I was the sensitive one, so I was the easiest target because I cried. My father wasn't home very much because he worked a lot. And my siblings teased me a lot. My brother, mimicked me as being an elephant. He'd go, "Rrr!" That was my mating call. So of course, when I was young, that was very hurtful. And I had a lot of my own body issues. I was always heavier than all my siblings, and my nose was bigger than all of my siblings, and I had other body issues that I'm not going to go into, but they all led into my insecurities, on top of the fact that I was already insecure because I was scared of my mom. I got into gymnastics, which was wonderful for me on one hand, but on the other, it compounded my body issues. I ultimately was kicked out of practice for being 5 pounds overweight, so I wasn't allowed to compete until I'd lost the 5 pounds. And definitely had felt humiliation at times with my team and the other girls making fun. People have brought up the major wounds as being abandonment, rejection, humiliation, betrayal, and injustice. So I definitely got into betrayals by my first obsession. Definitely used me over a period of years because I always gave him, attention. And then my first love betrayed me as well. He ended up calling me and breaking up with me because his ex-girlfriend had made him call me with her listening. So when we were completely in love, he called me and told me he was breaking up with me with her listening, and I cried and I cried and I cried, and we ended up getting back together, but it was never the same after that. And then, of course, there's always injustices throughout your life. Nothing felt fair. I was always scared of my mother. I felt fatter than everyone else. Back then, Dorothy Hamill was in straight hair, skinny, flat-chested girls, and I was the opposite in every way. I had curly hair. I was a little chunky, and my nose was big, and so I never felt like I fit in. There was no clothes out there that I could buy that made me feel better about myself. Even in 4th grade, I had a teacher who had kept me out of music, gym, and art because I forgot to get an A paper signed. And so my mother, of course, came in when she found out because I called her crying because I'd forgotten my instrument at home. So she got my teacher into a lot of trouble, and then my teacher hated me for the rest of the year. And she was pretty scary. So that wasn't a good experience either. But anyway, you get my point. Typical twin issues growing up with difficulties. My final injustice was at work. I worked at University of Penn for 25 years in research, and I had fallen on the steps in 2013 at work. They moved my office upstairs, so I had to come down the elevator every day and then run down a flight of stairs to go to the section, and I would run back and forth to my office all day long. So coming down these steps one day, it had snowed, and of course it was an inner stairway, but the snow was still being trapped onto the steps, so I fell on the steps, and thinking I would be fine in a couple days, and I was not. So that ended up being continual rehab for a few years. I still have 5 bulges in my spine, which I still have pain every day, but it's much better since I'm not working at the moment. I went through employee health there. I did feel like I was being treated like a criminal. I was a top employee for 25 years, and they kind of force you into taking a payoff, so they don't have to pay you for the rest of your life. And they hire an insurance doctor who had multiple errors in the notes he made in the 10 minutes that he saw me in comparison to the years that my doctors had seen me. But I was told, because they videotaped me jogging, which I was supposed to do because it actually helped my back, that if the judge saw me jogging, that it was a 50-50 chance that I would lose all benefit. So I decided to take the payoff, not necessarily because of that, but because I really no longer wanted to be attached to this negative entity, which was making me feel like a criminal when here I was, injured. And, you think that disability is there to protect you, but it's not, because once you take that disability, they think they see you as someone suing them, and that's how they treat you. And also, when I signed off to my payoff in court, I was also told that I am never allowed to work there again, even though I was a top employee for 25 years and left on my own accord. So anyway, in 2012, I started awakening. I had been married twice, and I was in 2 more long-term relationships. I had another 6-year relationship, and then I was in an 11-year relationship at the time. Well, I guess it was about 8 years in 2012. And through those relationships, you know, I had allowed abuse and neglect, and that was, you know, normally we'll say that this person did this to us, but we're really supposed to understand that we allow these things to happen to us and how to resolve our own pain. In 2012, my mother's Alzheimer's really started. They were out in Oregon, so my siblings and I had to bring them home with my father, who was already wheelchair bound. And I had just finished a fashion design certificate, and I was going to start, you know, creating the designs I had created in class. But I couldn't, because now my parents came home and we had to take care of them, get them into a new facility and go see them every week. And on top of, you know, my full-time job, which was still very stressful, and my children. So that was 2012, and then the next year is when I hurt my back. So I was rehabbing my back for a few years. I was always continuously working, but I was working at 6 hours for most of the time that it hurt my back. Well, the first 7 months I was working 8 hours, but was in such pain, I finally insisted on seeing chiropractors for my back, which they tell you they won't pay for, but that's not true, because if it helps, they have to pay for it, which did end up helping me. In July of 2015, I met my twin, and actually my daughter was with me when we met. And during that time, that first summer, you know, there was definitely a connection right away. I was kind of defensive when I first met him, not because of him, but for other reasons. But you know, right after that, I immediately felt that connection, that there was definitely something special about him, that, you know, he had all those qualities that I always looked for in a guy but never found. So I was in a relationship, and he was married, and all that summer I was kind of asking God, like, why are you putting me through this and dragging me through this again? I don't need to do this again. By September, I was energetically connecting with him, and left my relationship that October of 2015. And that, you know, that I had vacillated about for the last 5 years. We had never lived together, but we had known each other since we were teenagers. So it was a very comfortable relationship, but it wasn't what I deserved, okay? And I really did want intimacy, but I'd kind of resigned to maybe this is what I'm supposed to have, total freedom, you know, with a boyfriend that I can see a couple times a week. But at that time that I let go in October of 2015, I realized that wasn't good enough for me, that I wanted true intimacy with someone. When I initially started going through this, I had no idea what twin flames were. My neighbor was very spiritual, and she helped me initially. She was giving me some massages, which was actually opening up my abilities more. I was seeing past lives when she was doing my massage. And she ultimately disconnected from me because I guess she couldn't deal with the energies, but she just disconnected from me, and it felt like a betrayal to me. It was very hurtful. She was the only one I felt like I could open up to at the time. But it was funny because she ended up giving me a journal, which is what started my journaling, and that was in January of 2016. Also in January 2016, I had met a medium before, because I'd always been into numbers and astrology and psychics, that kind of thing. I was very into numerology. I've been doing people's numbers since my early 20s. But she had done a party for me before, this medium, so I decided to look her up to explore what my abilities were. Because I started connecting with dead people. My grandmother started connecting with me, which was completely new for me. And so I took a class with her, and then I ended up going on to getting my Reiki Master in 2016. Also, the beginning of 2016, and this is still before I knew what a twin flame was, I was jogging and I got hit by a car at the end of January, and that took me out of work for another month because I had a major concussion, and fortunately it didn't hurt my back more. That was a miracle, but it did give me a major concussion. I was out of work for a month, and then I had to wean my way back into work, and then it still was never the same. There were still things at work that I was really having a hard time with, and I decided to leave before I felt like they might try to get rid of me because I still wasn't full-time. February of 2016 is when I came across Twin Flame online. It was just an advertisement, and it caught my eye, and I went into it. It was a checklist of 10 things on whether or not you're a twin flame, and I was never one to check all the checks on the checklist in that kind of questionnaire, and here I was checking all the checks. And then I started discussing it with my next door neighbor who had always been very spiritual, and that's how that progressed. But then when she disconnected from me, I had to find someone else, and I'd already reached out actually to Patricia McNeely. She was probably the first twin flame that I reached out to, and had a session with her. April of 2016 was my first leap of faith, was my truth email to my twin, telling him everything about how I was feeling about him, that I was connecting and I was in so much pain every day, and he sent me back a very neutral response in a very loving way. And so I stopped seeing him at that time, and that lasted for about a month and a half to 2 months when I needed to go back for certain reasons. And then I left my job the end of May that year too, which was my next leap of faith. I mean, I'd been there for 25 years, so it was very difficult for me to take that leap. But everything works out the way it's supposed to. I had kind of pre-planned financially that last December, just in case I had to leave work that year, so I was kind of prepared for it. And then that summer is when I got my Reiki Master. Excuse me. And then in January of 2017, I finally started coming out of it. I cried probably almost every day for at least the first year, if not more. Probably all through the end of 2016. I had connected with Shawnee from Realignment now. She was Souls on Mission at that time, so she was a big help to me in my darkest time, which was probably like around June, July I think was when I met her. Through the end of 2016, we talked almost every day, and she was a big help in getting me through what I had to go through. As of 2017, I was starting to come out of it. I went to a yoga retreat that January, which really helped because now I was finding a group of people who kind of got what I was going through, because a lot of them were Reiki masters and spiritual, so they would understand somewhat what I was going through. In June of 2017, I went to a retreat in the south of France with Mercedes Kirkle. She's a woman who channels Mary Magdalene, and she's Jewish, so I love that she was Jewish, channeling Mary Magdalene. And it was the most amazing trip ever. That was another leap of faith to actually take that trip. It was a lot of money. I had just spent a lot of money. It was my daughter's 21st birthday last March, so we had, done a nice little vacation already, and I wasn't prepared to spend that money, but it was money well spent. It was just an amazing trip. The energy in the south of France was unbelievable. I know I'd been there before. The group of people I was with, I knew every one of them. It was a big spiritual awakening, and spirits connecting with me, because it was so wonderful there. I'd say the worst of it for me was March 2016 to September of 2016. So a year ago, September, there's a gate there that you go through that kind of like all of a sudden puts you out into feeling normal again, which was kind of an odd feeling that year. But then this year, when that same portal passed, it was, I was feeling much more grounded in myself. Yeah, so here we are. I decided to, I could reach out to my twin, but I decided not to after my France retreat in June, that it was really up to him to take the time he needed to figure out what he wanted for his life. So I let it go. I did send an email in August and had another incident where I accidentally saw him at one point, and he kind of turned and went the other way. So that was very hurtful, but it is what it is, and I let it go. So I wanted to now bring my daughter into this because she's been going through something of her own spiritually, and I want to give her a chance to talk about that. Well, first of all, just to get a little background on her. When she was little, I always saw her as psychically gifted. She used to see shadow people walking in and out of the bathroom, and she sleepwalked and sleep talked, and it was very entertaining. And she was always just very grounded. I always felt like she was like my little mom. She was so good when she was a baby, and I was going through I separated from her dad when she was only 1. And she helped me get through that time so much because she just intuitively knew me. I remember times lying on the living room floor, not being able to deal with it that weekend, and she would lie next to me drinking her bottle and just kind of like looking over at me like, okay, she's dealing. But she was always there for me. And we've always had a very strong bond. We're very similar.
I'm grandma.
And what?
I'm grandma.
She's very much like my grandmother. Oh, that was interesting. When I finally bought a sewing machine for myself to start working on some clothes, I was putting it together, reading the instruction manual, and she starts telling me where to put everything. Like, Mom, this just goes there and there and there. Like, why are you reading the book? And I'm like, well, how do you know all this stuff? And right after this, she says, I had the weirdest dream last night about this young boy and telling this young girl telling this boy to sew, and I'm like, oh my God, like, this is my grandmother. She knew nothing about my grandmother, and my grandmother raised her little brother in sewing factories at 10 years old. So I always felt like she was connected to my grandmother, and that's how I connected with that medium, because I wanted to find out more about my grandmother and her. And she had told me that she wasn't my grandmother, but my grandmother was definitely connected to her. She was with her every day, teaching her in her sleep, and very connected. And that's when I learned to connect with my grandmother. I would know her by the...
I didn't know that. That she was teaching me in my sleep?
Yeah. I told you, but you probably forgot. But I started feeling my grandmother. She would be a certain energy that always wrapped around my shoulders. And I realized, so now when I walked down in the basement, I didn't feel scared anymore. When you get the hair standing up on end coming up from the basement, I didn't feel it anymore because I knew it was my grandmother. So that was kind of the start of my psychic abilities. But anyway, yeah. So I wanted to have Jenna tell you like what it's like coming from the perspective of a child of divorce, and then what it was like for her to go through my journey, and then her own awakening in a spiritual sense, what she's been going through. So, like, tell me, what was it like for you to have grown up, in a divorced family, and what was your perspective and all that? Do you feel like you got cheated because your father wasn't around, or?
Well, Daddy was around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like it's just what I know because you guys separated at such a young age, so I just always knew it was 2 different households. I guess growing up, I thought I got cheated a little bit just because everyone else had a father in the household, and it was just you, and you just, like, helped me financially and always took care of me. But then when I get older, I see how my dad is, and I, realize that it wouldn't have been a good household. But I don't realize that until now.
Right, but so you can give parents who are still in a situation maybe they shouldn't stay in, but they are because of their children, that maybe doesn't feel like it's the right thing to do at the time, but always following your own happiness and what's best for you will automatically turn out to be what's best for everyone else, because everyone else has their own journey too. Right?
Well, yeah, like I didn't understand growing up why I didn't have my dad in the household. And I mean, kids are gonna go through it because they're not gonna understand, but when they get older, not even my age, but probably around high school, I don't know, I started to realize that it just wasn't good. And like, I'm glad you guys separated because you deserve better than him.
Oh.
Like, I love him, but
Yeah.
he's just not there's just a lot of wrongs
Yeah,
about
he
it.
has alcohol issues. He's always been a functional alcoholic. He's a very loving person, but he has an addiction, and that's what takes over their life, right?
Yeah.
And I decided to leave because I did not want that to be what you grew up learning about, you know.
He was always there for me emotionally.
He was.
And
He was always
supported
there.
me, and he would give me money when he could, but
Well, what I felt was most important in that situation is just to make sure you never put yourself in the way of your child being able to love the other parent. If both parents are loving their children and they don't put them in the middle, there's no reason why it can't work out fine. I mean, if anything, I think my daughter just became so much stronger because of it.
well, I feel like just because I never had a doubt in my mind that Daddy didn't love me, just because he couldn't financially support me or be there all the time for me, I never thought he never loved me. He didn't love me.
Right, you always knew both your parents. You always
Yeah.
knew both your parents loved you. Even though in the beginning you were very young, you wouldn't remember. The first 6 months of my separation were very difficult because he wouldn't see the kids. He didn't want anything to do with anything. He was just angry with me. Of course, it was all my fault. I didn't want to take responsibility for him not sharing in the relationship. I mean, he wasn't helping me, financially. He still doesn't help me financially, which was okay. That's something I decided in the beginning, that I wasn't going to sue for child support or anything like that, because I didn't want that in my life. I didn't want to have to fight someone every week for money. So, my kids were happy. I mean, they had their times, but whether you're together or not, your kids are still going to go through difficult times growing up.
I think it's worse if you're in not troubled household, but if you're constantly arguing, and kids can tell when things are off. So if you guys are arguing, not even arguing, but like you can tell it's just not the same. Like, kids know.
And the other thing is, if you're staying in this bad relationship that you know you shouldn't be in anymore, your kids know that too. You're teaching them how to live a lie, because you're not living in your truth if you're staying for the children. And is that what you want to teach your children? Do you think that's their best life? And is not happiness their best life? To live in joy, to stay present, and to know their worth.
Amen.
So then what happened? Oh, first I want to tell them why you decided to shave all your hair off.
So I used to have a lot of hair.
Beautiful hair.
And anyone who knows me knows I love my hair more than anything. It was just very unique and different. No one had my hair. I guess growing up, like my whole life, I've had weight issues, and I've always thought that beauty was defined by my characteristics. So my hair, how I looked, just because society portrays that. Like, you're supposed to look a certain way to be beautiful. And kind of on my own little journey, I'm about to graduate and enter the real world. I've just learned to love myself more and learn that, those things don't define who I am. So I cut my hair off, so I have nothing to hide behind anymore, and I just didn't want my hair to define me any longer.
Which
And
I thought was really brave. Not many people want to do that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people have told me, your hair doesn't make you who you are. Like, I don't know that. It was just something I needed to go through in order to love me for me.
Yeah, kind of a challenge, right? So tell everyone about what it was like when I was going through the worst part of my journey, when I was crying a lot, and when was the first time you realized that something was going on with Mom?
I don't
Do you remember remembering anything before I actually opened up to you about it?
I don't really remember. I knew it was confusing. I don't really remember before you opened up.
Right. And you were distracted. I mean, you had been at college for a year.
That was my first year
when we met.
yeah.
So, but you.
But it was hard at first because I didn't understand it, and everywhere we went, she would tell people, and it wasn't.
Well, about my journey.
Yeah. And it wasn't embarrassing, I would say, but it was just like a lot of people don't understand it, so they think she's crazy. So then I would just be sitting there awkwardly next to her, like, well, that's my mom, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm here no matter what.
So I think it was like December of 2015 when I first opened up to my kids, because I was already crying a lot, almost every day, and I felt I had to tell them what I was going through. I didn't know anything about what twin flames was at that time, just that I was very much in love with someone who was not available, and they had to know what I was going through, so they wouldn't be confused.
I think it was harder for Matthew just because he lived here.
Mm-hmm.
I was away at school, so you would just call me, but I definitely don't think I talked to you that as much as I did before. Then when I came home for summer, I was home the whole summer, and that's when I would start hearing you crying, and that was hard.
Was that the first? So this last summer you weren't home, but it was the summer before you were home, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like freshman going to sophomore year.
So yeah, it was difficult for her because it was, and when you're feeling so emotional like that, obviously I'm not that emotionally available to her and her needs.
Yeah.
And I tried to be, and I was there for her, but not the same as I normally would have been.
But it was also like I didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I understand, like, I would give you more of your space and let you cry and all that, but before I didn't understand it, and I was like, you're just crazy, like, how do I know you're really going through this and you're not just, like,
crazy.
Making it up.
Yeah.
So then when you would put all your time and effort into this, and I was only home for the summer, so I was like, this is the only time I'm home, and then I'm going back to school, and I'm not going to have any time with you.
Right. But you were out, most of the time when you're home, you're out doing stuff with your friends and stuff, so. But it was hard for you.
But it was hard when you're emotional, and then
right.
I hear you crying, and then it's like, I can't do anything.
Right.
And it just makes you not want to be in the house.
So then last December of 2016, I had a purge one night. I'm trying, and I was crying really hard. It was late at night, and I was trying to keep my covers over me so that she wouldn't hear, and she could hear me through the vent. And I knew that, but there was nothing I could do.
But it wasn't just that night. It was like all of them together.
Yeah, it was a lot for her. But the next day we're in the car, and she kind of snapped at me about it.
I think I was emotional already for whatever reason. It's just one of those days, and then it all kind of came out, and I snapped.
She was like, I heard you crying. And I had to be authentic as well, that she's growing up now, and there's some responsibilities that she's going to have to take on that when she was sad for the first 20 years growing up, I was always there for her, and
you're my mom.
Right. But now is a moment where I just need you to be there for me, and just understand that there's nothing you can do. I'm not going to kill myself, but I am very hurt, and this is a spiritual thing, and I really have little control over it at times. And when I'm purging, I need to purge, and there's not much I can do about it, and I'm not supposed to shut it down, and that I just need you to help me.
It was almost just like irritating though, because like when I would try to go to sleep at night, and that's all I heard is you like wailing in the room, and it's like I just can't escape it. I can't.
Yeah, it was difficult. But knowing that that was an issue that now you had to deal with, because Mommy wasn't there to help you deal with it, because she was the cause of this issue. So in a way, it's making you work on yourself at the same time. Yeah. But that was a good wake up for me as well, because I had to, toughen up a little bit so that she wouldn't be so affected about what I was going through. And I've been by myself a lot.
Months.
Yeah, but I was by myself a lot of the time before this. So if I needed to cry, I would, because nobody else was around. Matthew wasn't always home. So, it kind of was a little kick in the butt for me to try to get out and about to get myself out of this. So she went back to school, but that's when I ended up going to the yoga retreat. Was last January, which started helping me bring me out of the solitude, the hermiting, and find my strength to do other things to help myself. So So then what happened? So then you're away at school, and then last year you stayed out there.
Mm-hmm. For most of
So
it.
what do you think happened this year that might have caused your own awakening?
I had seen some guy on Instagram, which is just a social media platform that we use now, and wasn't anything special. I tend to talk to athletes a lot. Is just kind of how I am. That's the area I attract, I would say. And it was this guy, he's famous. Didn't think anything of him, thought he was very attractive, but that's about it. I ended up constantly dreaming about him, like probably 5 nights out of the week for a couple months straight, and I didn't really understand it. I had then one day just commented, I follow him on also Snapchat, which is just another social media thing, and I had messaged him back about something that he had posted, and he responded to me, and I was very shocked that he responded to me, just because he has thousands and thousands of people following him that are constantly just throwing themselves at him. And I thought it was a coincidence because the time he responded was 11/11. So she got me into all the numbers things and all that.
Yes, because I drive her crazy telling her what license plates are in front of us every time we're out driving.
So he lives in Atlanta, and I'm pursuing my acting after I graduate, and I had never heard of Atlanta, but one day 2 people came up to me telling me that they think I would do very well in Atlanta to pursue my acting. So I thought that was a very big coincidence because I had never heard anything about filming in Atlanta. And I recently messaged him because I was going to visit Atlanta, and that didn't turn out too good because he just doesn't know who I am. So me trying to introduce myself to him is kind of iffy, since I'm sure girls just constantly message him because he is fine. So I'm not really stressing about it. I haven't had that too many dreams about him lately. I still see him on my social media, and I just think if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. When I move to Atlanta, if I see him, I see him.
Yeah. So, our personalities, we're very much the same, but we're different in a certain way. She has more of a masculine energy. She's very grounded, and she's able to just go out and do anything she needs to do. She always gets jobs on her own without an issue. She gets along with everyone. She kind of puts her feminine side on the back burner more, whereas I'm more feminine than masculine.
But that gets me in trouble sometimes.
Yes.
I think I need to be more feminine.
Yeah, so she's working on balancing that and maybe opening her heart more. She already is loving to everybody, but I think it's more the one-on-one intimacy thing that she needs to work on, her feminine. And she knows that. But, so I just wanted to give you an idea that, we're, as children of twins, they are going to go through a spiritual awakening, as is everyone.
But I told her the other day that now when I tell my roommate, because I don't tell many people about this whole Atlanta boy thing, because I personally think I'm crazy. Well, at least I did at first. So when I tell my roommate, she kind of just looks at me like I'm crazy, so now I know how she feels when she would tell people this. So I apologized for treating her the way I did and feeling embarrassed by when she would talk to people, because now that's what I'm going through, and people think I'm crazy, and it's like, I'm really not.
And it really touched my heart when she actually just came out and said, I'm sorry for not just listening to you and hearing you, as opposed to,
And not trying to understand.
Yeah, so it was really nice to hear. So just know that, things will change if you're going through a struggle with your relationship with your children, and have faith in them. Don't forget, you were a child too. The child grows up. That's their journey. It's not your journey. Our journey as parents is to love them and protect them when they can't protect themselves. But once they grow up, we have to allow them to discover their own journey. And know that, since the whole planet is awakening, certainly our children are going to be very close to us in the way that we awaken, since they're with us. and to be open to that and trust them and have faith in them. You've taught them for the first 15, 20 years. You have to realize at that point you have to have faith that they heard what you were saying and what they learned from you and just watching you. It's the best way to teach someone is by example.
You may not think that we hear everything you say. We just don't show it.
Yeah. But that's just to trust that healing yourself and making yourself happy is what's going to be best for everyone around you. It's not selfish. It's what's needed in the situation. It's like being on the airplane. You have to give yourself air before you can give it to the others. You have to energize yourself before you can distribute that energy to others. And of course you want that to be positive energy going out. So I wanted to thank Jenna for coming on today. I love you too. I'm sure it's a big help to some of those moms and dads out there who are scared to leave their children behind.
I promise you your kids will get over it. That sounds kind of harsh.
To just love. Make sure both parents are put in a place to be able to love their children, be there for them without interference from the other.
Especially if you just sit them down and tell them, like, this is not working out anymore. It doesn't mean I don't love you. And I know your kids want what's best for you.
Even if they don't know it yet. And even when kids get mad at you for telling them what to do, they actually want you to give them that structure. Kids without structure, yeah, they do. If the parents don't give them structure and give them too much free reign, that's when you end up with some issues with the kids. Because kids actually need structure. They want that from you, even though they tell you they don't. They do.
Yeah, or else they'll be buck wild.
Yeah. It helps them feel safe. They shouldn't have to make all their decisions when they're young. That's why you're there. But as they get older, you just have to have faith that they're going to make their own decisions. It is their journey. It's their contract. This is what they decided.
Some of them are going to be bad decisions. And you just got to roll with it.
Exactly. So you learn. So we're very much in the feminine energy today, and I just wanted to pull a couple cards for the Divine Feminine today. So let's see. I have my Ascension deck here. Okay. And this is for the Divine Feminine, the organic Divine Feminine Twin Flames. What is the advice for the Divine Feminine Twin Flames today? Organic Divine Feminine Twin Flames. What's the advice? Okay, and we have, I don't know if it's Serapis or Serapis Bay. Okay. The number's 41, which is the Ace of Cups. And it's a 5. 5 is all about freedom, change, excitement. And it's change. It can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. That's the point. So anyway, this 5 is 41-5, which is the 1, which is the masculine energy on the inside, the very driven and focused energy, independent, selfish, with the 4 on the outside, which is the builder. It's of stability. So someone people see as very trustworthy and dependable. And that's the Ace of Cups. It's loving yourself first. So this reads, Serapis Bey was keeper of the white ascension flame in Atlantis and is now Kohan of the 4th ray of harmony. He is known as the Egyptian because he worked with Archangel Metatron to suffuse the Great Pyramid with cosmic wisdom energy at the time of its construction. In drawing this card, you're invited to stand within the white flame and feel its influence. Connect with Serapis Bey and draw his energy of wisdom, cooperation, and dedication to you. He is the only master to work with the Seraphim, and they will shower you with blessings as you tune into this Ascension card. And the affirmation is, I walk with Serapis Bey. I like to say Serapis. I'm not sure if it's Serapis or Serapis. Okay? So it's time to be strong and stable, be wise and cooperate with others. Show your dedication to others, to your children, to your partner, to your work. Okay? It's so important in this journey to heal yourself and find your mission, but don't be stressed about thinking, what is my mission? Your mission can just be going out in public and telling your story. It's about sharing your energy with others. And just, I was just on a little break. I went out to school to be with her for a little while and go to Atlanta to check it out in case she wants to move there. And whenever I go out on these trips, I end up talking for hours to people on the plane. It was funny because I was sitting next to a guy who's in boot camp going home for break. And I wasn't even going to go there. I'm like, I'm not going to insinuate myself upon him. I just, when we started a little conversation, just said, yeah, I've been going through a bit of a spiritual journey the past couple of years. And he just comes right out and says, tell me about it. And I'm like, are you sure it's a long story? And he's like, yeah, definitely. So we ended up talking the whole flight, which has happened before. Her friends at school, one of her guy friends we went out to dinner with, and he was so into everything I was telling him. And then her roommate, I always talk to her as well and try to encourage her in what I see are her talents, because she's not sure where she wants to go right now as far as work. So there's always a way that you can be there for others. It doesn't have to be on YouTube, and it doesn't have to be something, like a formal 8-hour sit-down job. It's just about sharing love and helping other people. So don't stress yourself about it. The most important thing is to balance yourself, stay present. So you don't look forward in lack and look back in pain. Stay present so you can be joyful, okay? And focus on yourself. Try not to plan too far ahead, trust. So that's the Ascension deck. Now we have the Past Life deck. And that's the Past Life deck. And this is for the organic, divine feminine twin flames. What is the advice for divine feminine twin flames? What's the advice? Okay, and we have wars and battles. Okay. So, and actually finances is at the bottom of the deck. And I know that finances is a big concern for everyone right now, the divine masculine and the divine feminine. But this is from past lives. There may be some trauma that you need to heal because of wars from past lives, being the aggressor or being the wounded. But it's also about, picking your battles. Okay? We're learning to be neutral and appreciate what others are going through, but not become part of it. Okay? And there's also, I'm noticing the flags. I just wanted to bring up, this is another way of separating people, The flag is symbolic of this country being separate from this. And we're trying to come into unity consciousness here.
That's not a good flag.
It's silly. See? It brings up judgment. We're teaching ourselves not,
That's the race flag. What is it called?
Isn't that a Confederate flag?
Yes.
It's just about war. It was about the North and the South.
The black people.
Yeah. See? That's what it means to you. So flags aren't necessarily a good thing, because they define separation. I'm also kind of seeing as they're putting the guns together, I'm getting a windmill. It's like how the Wheel of Fortune moves forward, but when we go into wars and battles, it totally breaks the wheel apart, and there's no way it can move forward. It just tears everyone involved apart. But there may be some of this to clear from past lives, or from your current life, and then from the journey of love.
Can I pick this one?
Oh, you want to pick it? All right. For the organic divine feminine twin flames. Okay. Oh, nice. Oh, this is perfect. She chose falling, which is number 14, which is her birthday. Okay, and it's a feather. Which is so light and free.
You just gotta fall sometimes and trust that God will catch you.
Don't block it. If you need to fall, fall. Allow it. It's like feeling the pain. Just feel it. Don't block it. And
oh, that was in the movie last night.
yeah, she said just fall.
Yeah, no, he said
Or
it. He said it.
I know, I
She's
can't
like,
even remember
I'm
what movie we're
falling and
watching.
I'm scared. And he's like, just fall.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, that's cute.
See, there's your synchronicities. And 14 is another 5, so we have 2 5s from this read. So again, more change and conflict. The 14 is temperance, which is all about patience. You know, people talk about balance a lot with temperance because it is balance too. You know, you're balancing the emotions between the cups, you know, the cups of water being poured back and forth. But it's really about patience. And that's one of the really big and hard lessons for all of us to learn. So 14 is the 4 on the inside, being very structured and stable, grounded on the inside. And you notice this. Where's the other deck? You notice in the cards, the numbers reflect each other. So this was number 41, and this is 14. Okay? So, and I'm just going to, I forgot to bring the book. I'm going to go grab the book so I can read you falling. But again, it's stability on the inside with the masculine energy on the outside, which gives off leadership abilities. So I'll be right back.
Hi.
Sorry about that. Okay, so 14. So 14 is perfect for her to pick. Not only is it her birthday, but it's the day that her dad and I married. Uh-huh. It says, don't worry. You may fear that you're falling, but it's just your soul diving deeper into the ocean of bliss. Are you sensing parts of your life flying away from you, out of your control, as the momentum of your divine surrender takes over and becomes more powerful than the old adhesive between you and what no longer serves? Laugh, cry, celebrate, and ponder. Whether it makes sense or not, you are like a perfectly ripe fruit falling from the universal tree, succulent and ready to be enjoyed for all that you are. If you wait any longer, this moment will be lost and you'll end up on the ground having to decay and go to seed in order to start the whole process again. This is not so bad, but what a shame if your sweet nectar was not to be savored by a hungry world. You deserve to be declared the most delicious, juicy fruit that ever was. So fall. You'll end up exactly where you're meant to be. This oracle contains a message for you. You're being called closer to the divine union and into the fulfillment of your destiny now. It's safe for you to trust what is happening and Spirit's connecting with me. Go with it. It might seem like you're being asked to take a leap of faith. It's the right timing for that. It's your time to give yourself in love without holding back anything of yourself. Is it wrong to love, to feel what I hold inside? The answer must wait. So have patience. Okay, and allow. Allow, allow, allow.
And it's page 41.
And that is page 41 that we end on. Perfect. So I hope this was helpful for all of you. And thank you, Jenna, for giving your time to us
welcome.
today. Yeah. And have an amazing holiday this week for all of you who celebrate Christmas and then the New Year. Have a great time. I will try to get a readout to you probably tomorrow. If I feel the energies are right, I'll try to do it tonight, but probably tomorrow I'll do another Divine Masculine read. But in the meantime, be good to yourself. Make sure to drink lots of water and ground yourself every day. Clear yourself every day. Make sure to get enough rest. And just be you, you know. You don't have to be perfect. You know, we all judge at times. Don't judge yourself for judging. Just allow it and understand yourself better.
Perfect is just a perspective.
Yes. And everyone deserves love, just as you are, no matter what. Okay? Thank you so much, everyone. Rise and be loved.